can just record. It should be recording, I guess, now. So sorry for now. So welcome again to another Principles of Management. So just to make sure, can you see the screen I'm sharing? Can anyone confirm that to me, please? I see someone here. Yes. Okay. Thank you very much. I had some students yesterday saying they couldn't see this. Anyway, we have been talking about personnel. I'm glad to be back. This is a very interesting topic. What we saw last class was a very simple, and I cannot phrase this enough, a very simple model of alignment of the objectives of a principal and an agent. The principal is the one that owns the resources, is the shareholder of the company. The agent is, say, the executive, the person that acts, that has agency. And there may be a misalignment of objectives between these two parties. The source of this misalignment will be in their utilities. There was a question, I believe. Sorry? I'm not sure I can listen to your questions. Perhaps if you type it, it's easier for me to read out what you're saying. As I was saying, I'll keep an eye on the chat so that I can check that out. As I was saying, this very simple model we had was based on this cost of effort function. From the, I think perhaps some students have the microphone on without wanting that, so I'll just go ahead and mute, unless you're always free to unmute yourselves back. Okay. Okay. As I was saying, this simple model was based on the cost of effort that the agent had. This is basically the disutility function of this agent. So they dislike working. This particular agent was actually okay in working, in putting effort up to 40 units of effort, let's say 40 hours per week. But anything above that, she had a pretty quick rising cost of effort function. So if we merge the two branches of the function we saw before, the first branch is right here, up to 40 hours. She has no effort. After that, this effort rises, and the slope increases as we increase the level of effort. So this increase, this was something I was showing you last week. This increase is lesser than if I do a similar increase. Let's say this is perhaps about the same distance. If I go all the way up here, let's say this is a straight line. Please don't be too fussy about it. Okay, so this distance, this increase in cost of effort is significantly higher than the previous one. So for an equal or perhaps even slightly smaller increase in effort, her cost of effort is much greater than what she had before. This simply is a reflection upon the fact that if the extra hour I do is this marginal additional hour is costing me more as I have worked more before. So the second hour of work is perhaps a breeze compared, well, an additional hour after the second hour of work is a breeze compared to an additional hour after the 12th hour of work. If you ever done an overnight to deliver a group report, you're probably very familiar with this phenomenon. So how did we solve that problem? So this is the increasing marginal cost of effort I was mentioning before. How do we solve this phenomenon? Well, we align the objectives of this agent with those of the company, and in this case we decide to do that by paying a sales commission. So now, depending on the output generated by the output for the company generated by the agent, the compensation is also changing. So basically what we are doing here is we are setting a compensation scheme that has this fixed component, which corresponds to this 1,000, and it has this variable component that corresponds to the 10%. Why 10%? Why not? Okay. And now this is matched with the slope of our cost of effort curve in darker blue, and the point in which both slopes are identical is the point in which the marginal cost of effort is equal to the marginal benefit of effort for this agent. So that's pretty much what we saw last class. I'm just doing a recap. We saw that there were some limitations to this model, but for the time being, we saw that this solved the principal agency problem, because basically we're giving part of the ownership, if not of the company, of the results of the outputs of the company to this agent. We also saw that we could stimulate the same level of effort by changing our cocktail of fixed plus variable components, which is something we have here on this slide graphically shown. So if we want to keep the compensation scheme, so the net pay for our employee the same, we can pretty much just play with here this commission, and then manipulate the reduce, in this case, the fixed component. Now and I stopped around here. I just have a couple of questions. I joined late. Yeah, I will upload a video for Tuesday's class to make up for that. So no extra session for you. It will be for you, but you'll be able to watch it on your own time when you have the time. Okay. So as I was saying here, if we want to maintain an overall compensation to a certain individual, if we are aware that this individual this agent responds to stimuli in terms of, say, a commission on sales, for example, which most rational-based economics tell us we do, at least to a certain extent, we can alter both the fixed and the variable component to make up the same net pay. Why is net pay so important here, and the keeping up of the same overall salary? Because we know that companies compete on the market for employees, for competitive and competent employees. So it would be, if you are equally competent and you are given two choices of work with different compensations, everything else equal, you're going to pick up the one with the highest compensation. So this overall market salary paid for your effort tends to be, in many cases, exogenously defined. But I don't want to turn this class into a labor economics classes. So let me summarize then the conclusions we can derive from this very simple model. So first things first, it is the slope of the cost of effort and the slope of the compensation curve that determines the marginal benefit of effort and the marginal cost of effort. So the slope here is the major determinant of action. So it is the slope of the relationship between pay and performance that provides incentives for more or less effort, and not the base salary, the base fixed salary. Okay? We will see that the base fixed salary serves other purposes. One, I think I've already kind of mentioned, which is this base salary helps us adjust the level of effort so that we can meet market prices or market wages that are paid on average. Another purpose of these wages or of this base salary is going to be to reduce uncertainty on the side of the employee, but I'll cover that a little bit later. First, let's focus on these first conclusions. Higher profits occur when salaries are adjusted to performance. Why is that? Because employees put more effort, and effort is the ultimate determinant of this company's results. So we know, if you studied in microeconomics, any production function, you'll know that there's going to be capital, that is equipment, software licenses, operating licenses, etc. And there's going to be other inputs, namely the effort, the labor of the employees of a company. So we know that if our employees work harder, everything else equal, we are going to derive higher profits in this company. Of course, these profits will even be higher if the variable part of our compensation scheme, that is that sales commission, for example, or profits commission, is steeper. So if I increase my commission from 10% to 12.5, 15 or 20%, I know that I would be incentivizing my employee to work even harder. Finally, this helps solve our problem of hidden information. So the good side effect, I wouldn't even call it a side effect perhaps, but an important result that we also get from this fixed plus variable compensation scheme is that we need not to oversee very closely the effort and the work of the individual, because the sales, the increase in sales alone, so because the individual is deriving part of her wage from the sales commission, is proof of that. So this also reduces any kind of supervision or overseeing costs. So no need for a fingerprint authentication when this employee arrives at the office, or putting a GPS tracker on her car so we make sure she's with clients at this time of day. We need not to control that, and this is simply because part of her, or a significant part of her compensation, will come from her results. So it's in her best interest to make the company grow and be and generate more sales. Okay, so these, I think, are the first conclusions we can derive from here. Let's talk now. Sorry, any questions you wanted to ask? Okay, so let's talk now a bit about the other part, the monitoring, the supervision of agents, specifically that. I'll leave this out for a little bit because I just really wanted to show this timeline. Perhaps let me summarize. Let me do a brief summary of some findings done here on board of directors' impact on the quality of governance. So we know that firms with smaller boards tend to have higher value. We also know that this is not a completely generalizable result, because it can be derived from the fact that smaller companies tend to be more cohesive, tend to be managed by executives that many times are also shareholders of the company. We can also say that board structure matters for firm value and performance. So we have here an example of a Norwegian law. It was from 2010 or something, that required that at least 40% of female directors in Norwegian companies, and that had a positive impact on firm value and performance. So this is an argument for diversity in general. And here an argument that, again, I think it's pretty common sense, which is for board independence. So for people that are not associated, that members of the board are not associated with the company in any other measure. Okay, I think I can skip these ones. I just wanted to focus here on this evolution. So as I was saying, these corporate governance codes, so the legislation and regulations or corporate governance, have appeared in waves, and these waves, they tend to come in crisis. So you have a 1930s regulation after the Great Depression. You had 1980s regulation after some scandals in governance as well. You have perhaps the more up until some years ago, the best well-known one, the Sarbanes-Oxley Act, after the Enron scandal, so this large energy company in the US. after the Enron scandal on how they were basically cooking their accounts, and after the financial crisis, you had the Dodd-Frank Act, which is still it's still in practice. The creation of the Financial Regulation Council in the UK, and for the European Union, the Green Report that companies have been issuing since 2011. Okay, and that is pretty much what I wanted to tell you regarding this last part. What I propose now is I do a quick break so that I can skip for another batch of slides. Okay. Any questions you want to put at this moment? Okay, so if not, I'll end here and let's just reconvene in, say, about a minute. Okay, so up until then, bye bye.